All right, welcome to our uh, first live from the mission broadcast. Uh, I've got Jessica in the room with me. For some reason, it wasn't working in my office, so I'm here in one of the advancement offices, and Jessica's in the room here moderating some of the questions that come through. So I am going to be answering questions here for the next half hour around anything related to the mission and COVID-19 and some of the things that we see happening, some of the trends. So I am delighted to be here with you. This is our first time actually doing a live broadcast. Usually we record these things. So if there's any technical glitches, please forgive us in advance. But we're going to be working hard here to get this out to you. So do we have any questions here? All right, so here's one of the questions. Have any guests of the mission tested positive for coronavirus? And then the second part of that question was, can the mission quarantine those folks when it happens, or if it happens? And the answer, I can answer that real quickly right now. There have been 0 known cases of COVID-19 across any of our facilities. If you're not familiar with our facilities, we have a full range of programs in play. One is the real base level drop-in center. It's meant to get people motivated to want to take next steps into our recovery programs. You get 3 meals a day. You've got clinics. You've got a super supportive staff that's giving you moderate to light levels of case management and helping you move forward. And then we also have our addiction recovery and Christian discipleship programs at the Ascent, which is at the main mission building. We also have our Agape home for single women or moms with kids. And those programs are much more full wraparound services and very, very designed to move people forward and much longer term. Across all those programs, we've had 0 cases thus far. It's very possible that a case could arise. I know that I've been keeping tabs nationally on what's been happening in shelters, and I know of 3 different shelters that had their first case across the country, and they ended up, really interesting, they tested everybody in the whole shelter, and 20 to 40% of their folks were also symptomatic. They're asymptomatic. They had coronavirus, but you couldn't tell. And so we haven't had any cases yet. The second we do get one, though, we are certainly going to be testing everybody, and we'll see what happens. The second part of that question was, what happens if someone does become symptomatic and test positive? Right now, we're working very closely with Unified Command, and they have the isolation and quarantine facility over on Byron Avenue, I believe. They have up to 58 beds in the event somebody who can't return to a congregate environment can stay. So it's not just for people experiencing homelessness, but it's anybody. If you've got a grandma that lives in the home that's not good for you to come back to, if you're a first responder, you can stay in the hotel. And so anybody that gets it goes directly there. It's the hospital, Peace Health, that's going to be kind of managing the beds that way. Great question. Got another question here. Is the mission allowing donations of items? Yes and no. So temporarily during this crisis, we're asking people not to donate the tangible items. We certainly need the financial support, absolutely, do that through the website. But in terms of physical items, we're asking people to not donate those now, just because we want to continue to encourage people to stay at home. And we also have to sanitize everything that comes through, and it'd be quite a challenge to do that. So right now, those donated items would be helpful. We're actually purchasing a lot of these things and giving them to folks just because it's a lot simpler and easier. We actually get a lot more bang for our buck when we purchase. So thank you. If you do have something, hold on to it until this is over, and then yeah, we'll be, I'm sure, needing plenty of support that way. See another question here. So question is, what will happen to the folks at the drop-in center when school resumes? So yeah, so school's obviously likely going to resume here in the fall. And what do we do in the meantime? Well, right now, we are planning. We're thinking that through very carefully. We know that the drop-in center at its previous location over on Holly Street, we were working with around 150 people staying in that program each day, actually 24 hours a day. And with the social distancing requirements, it'd be very difficult to keep 150 people there. In fact, if we were to return there today, we would be turning out about 100 people to the street and only being able to serve around 50 if we were still following the 6-foot rule. So we're working diligently trying to discover a solution. Nothing is settled yet. We've got some pretty good ideas though, and yeah, we're working on it. So yeah, great question. Okay, other question. How has COVID-19 impacted the mission? Good question. It has certainly changed things around. We've got a different kind of normal that we're engaged in here. You know, the goal is keeping folks out of the hospital and keeping them safe. That's what we're aiming for. We don't want to crash the medical system, right? We want to save lives. And so far, we've been doing an exceptional job at that. I'm really proud of the team working as hard as they have been to make this happen. You know, the impact is varied. Like, for example, a lot of our volunteers we can't have in an effort to keep the virus from spreading. So staff are having to pick up a lot of volunteer types of supports, which is a lot of work. I know staff have been putting in long hours and working really hard. A negative impact, I imagine, would be staff starting to feel it. We really don't want burnout to happen, and that can happen. And so one of the things I've been asking for people, I'm like, well, how can we help? I'm like, support the staff in this. One great way to do that is give them some gift cards, right? Words of encouragement. Remind them that we are very thankful for them being on the front lines like they are. And it truly is the front lines. And I know staff are making incredible sacrifices to continue doing this work and caring for our most precious, vulnerable people in our community. We continue to fight the fight. And it's going really well. Other things, you know, we've really been sanitizing like nobody's business. You know, we've really upped that considerably. I mean, we're already doing it. We're already highly sensitized to H1N1, hepatitis, all these other things that have gone on before, but now it's even more important, and even more important as the curve is flattening. It can be easy to kind of like, oh, you know what, we haven't had any problems yet. No one's tested positive. Things are all good. But the reality is we still need to be as diligent as ever to continue keeping people out of the hospital, saving lives. Great question. What is something encouraging you've seen because of the drop-in center move? That's a good question. You know, the added space of the high school has really been a benefit in that people can really spread out a lot easier. And when you have that kind of ability to spread out, it's great because there's less conflict that occurs. And it's a beautiful space. And the high school is being so hospitable to the people that we're working with there. It's been phenomenal. And that's been an encouragement. I've seen a lot of people as well that are really kind of reawoken to the fact that, in a sense, they've been in their own sort of personal pandemic for some years, which usually brings them in the doors of the mission. And now the whole society is experiencing what some people have experienced and the things that led them to experiencing homelessness. And that, in a broad sort of cultural sense, has been a kind of a neat thing to see as people gain a deeper sympathetic understanding of what it's like to be in the shoes of someone experiencing homelessness. And for our guests as well, there's a whole lot more sense of wanting to have some meaning behind the hardship that it is. You know, one of the challenges that you experience when you're on the streets and everything's shut down, there's no more restaurants to go use the bathroom at. You can't plug your phone in anywhere. You can't, you know, a lot of other agencies reduce or change how they do business, and it's harder to get the services that make it just that much more bearable to be on the street. And the mission becomes really the only place you can go for a lot of people to get the help that you need. And it's just a harder go of it when you're on the streets. And I think that's the case anywhere. Any kind of people that are on the margins, they experience the brunt of any sort of crisis like we're in now. Great question. Another question we have. Do you have a question? Oh, this isn't a question. This is something I have for you. If you have a question, please write it in the comments. Here, we're keeping tabs on the comments, and Jessica is moderating for me and showing me the questions that pop up. If you have any more questions, please write them out now, and I'm happy to answer it here live. It's part of the fun of this format. We got a question here? Okay. What can individual community members do to help our neighbors who are homeless? Well, I mentioned a few of those things already, since most of us have to stay at home except for essential workers. Some of the best ways, and we're a Christian institution, we believe in prayer. That's one of the best ways, to be praying for the staff here, be praying for the guests that are coming through the doors, be praying for our safety when it comes to the virus. Be praying for the financial support to continue coming in so we can continue providing this much needed service in our community. You can hop on our website if you feel called to donate. That's another big help for sure. I think it's a big help to get the word out there that this is the mission is still on the front lines and still working diligently to keep the entire community safe by keeping people out of the ER. And I think it's important for the community to keep that awareness, as well as for the community to keep the awareness that this is a tougher go for those that are in homelessness. So those are some of the best ways you can do it. Again, like I said before, support the staff if you can. I think we had a church give us some gift cards here recently that went to staff, and we said the whole basket went to the drop-in center staff, and they were over the moon. And to be reminded that the community has our back in this is really, really helpful and quite an encouragement. So that'd be a great one if you can do that. Looks like we have some more questions rolling in. How has Agape been affected? Great question. So Agape, if you're not familiar with Agape, it's our single women and moms with kids shelter. One of the things we've been doing with the recovery programs that we have, like Agape, is we've set aside rooms in the event somebody were to contract the virus. And now that we have the isolation and quarantine at the old Motel 6, we can actually open those rooms up, and we've been getting more people in as long as they're screened to be safe for the community. Right now, I know there's a lot of kids not going to school. It's been going for about a month and a half. I know at first they were pretty excited about that. But I know too, as being a parent of two young kids, that can be challenging, and your kids can regress a little bit when they can't play with their friends as much. I know that we do work hard to practice social distancing, but when everyone's together, we try and keep the unit itself as safe from outsiders as possible. For example, I was just there this morning doing a devotional time where I read a story from Scripture and talk about it. And I had my mask on, I had my hand sanitizer, and really made sure that I wasn't bringing anything in that could cause harm to the group. But right now, they're holding up pretty well, and they seem in good spirits, so we're happy about that. Another question, has there been any new programs or ideas brought up because of COVID, i.e. new challenges or visions? Yeah, that's a great question. So, some of the classes, for example, like in the recovery programs, you can't go to AA like you used to, and so AA has gone online. And a number of our classes, one of our staff has pre-existing conditions and can't come into our building, but still is able to teach class from home. And so if you go into our chapel right now, you've got chairs set 6 feet apart all over the chapel, and classes are going on there. That's been a new way to do things that we haven't done before. We really do need to think through for the future, though, what is this social distancing thing going to look like in our programs? The recovery programs do have space to isolate too, and they're just humming along just fine. I know at our men's the Ascent program, at nighttime, traditionally in the past years, half the drop-in center guests would move into the chapel and the dining room at night, and they've told me over and over again how nice it is to not have this huge influx of people that kind of take over your space when you're a part of that recovery program. Not everybody's in recovery yet. Of the folks in the drop-in center coming in, it can be a challenge. And so, thinking through how is there a way to give a greater sense of separation to the men in the recovery program from folks that are still in pre-recovery. That's been something I've been thinking about. There's lots of little kind of tweaks here and there. I know our sanitization, making sure people are washing their hands like they're supposed to, and all those sorts of things are ways that we are changing things. Good question. Here's another question. What do you and your guests, or where do you and your guests see hope right now? I think there's a lot of things that can take away hope, as the economy is in this really suffering place, and rents still aren't any cheaper here in Bellingham. You start to think, hey, am I going to be able to get a job? Am I going to be able to get a place to live that I can afford? These kinds of questions are circulating in the minds of our people as they are working to get out of their homelessness situation. And it can feel daunting. And you can feel a sense of lost hope. However, at the same time, as you are in a place of suffering, like many of our people already are, and it just seems to be ramped up to the next level, one of the places of hope actually comes from our faith. And I see it a lot in our guests that, in a sense, are like, you know what? I got nothing to lose now. It's all lost. What is there? What is there now for me? And it really does bring people to their knees a bit more and recognizing their sense of vulnerability and the fragileness of what it means to be a human being. And so I think people are gathering a greater sense of hope as they pray and recognize that God is present and with them through all of this. That's one of the kind of beautiful things that I've seen. There's a greater, in a sense, commitment or conviction to giving their life over to Jesus. And and that's our hope for anybody, of course, because there's such a flourishing of life in that. But I'm seeing greater energy in that, and that's a really neat byproduct of this difficult time. Here's another question. Are people at the drop-in center able to wash their clothes or take showers? What services are available? Yeah, great question. So yes, showers. I mean, at the old drop-in center, we would get about 160 showers in a week. It's either through our shower trailer parked in the lower lot of the main mission or in the main mission itself. Or we'd be sending folks up to the YMCA with shower passes. We didn't have showers built into the facility, so that too is a temporary facility. And now at the high school, we've been doing around 450 showers a week, which is phenomenal. Yeah, and really helps too with sanitizing and keeping people clean and fresh and feeling good about themselves. So that's been a huge benefit. The clothing has been an issue. I know we talked about trying to secure a laundry trailer that can work kind of off grid. We poked around quite a bit, couldn't find anything that was already made. Everything else is a couple months out at least, and we're not sure how long we're going to be at the high school. People did get their laundry done once a week if they're regulars at the drop-in center. Ascent and Agape, they get their laundry done as much as they need in those facilities. But yeah, at the drop-in center, laundry's been more of a challenge. Right now, we're working on getting volunteers that are vetted and safe in light of the virus to be able to take those clothes of folks to our old drop-in center, which has laundry facilities in it, and do laundry for folks there. And it'll probably be, again, either once a week or once every couple of weeks, just depends. People do get their linens done on a regular basis, though, which the county is helping us out with, which is a huge, huge help. And we're very thankful for their support in this. I see another question, but Jessica's handwriting is suffering here. That started last week. Oh, it already started. So yeah, okay. So the laundry's already happening as of last week. She's just letting me know. Do we have another question here? All right, is the mission sending all meals to Bellingham High School? Good question. No, yes and no. So we're handling out of the 22 meals that are offered there each week, or 21 meals. Out of the 21 meals offered there each week, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 11 of those meals are handled by the mission. So the mission handles the weekends and breakfast throughout the week. The county has contracted with the school district to utilize their food in serving lunch and dinner Monday through Friday. And that has been an enormous help. Otherwise, we're having to, amongst everything, cook a bunch of food down at the mission and haul it up there, and it gets to be pretty exhausting. So we're very thankful that they're able to cover that on behalf of the people that are coming in. Good question. Questions from an 8-year-old. Does coronavirus cancel hope? That's a great question. Does coronavirus cancel hope? I think it depends on who you are, if it cancels hope or not. I imagine, like I said before, many of the people that are staying with us have gotten to a place where they're pretty disillusioned sometimes, or they might harbor some bitterness over making attempts at bettering their life and then falling backwards again, or they try and do the right thing and they get a stiff arm and it's not helpful for them, and so does coronavirus add to it? It certainly can for some. For others, I think homelessness is on the minds of a lot of people. I mentioned this earlier as I was talking, that the general population is thinking more about homelessness because there's a more of a sympathetic understanding now, like, oh man, this really undoes a lot of things, this coronavirus. And so I think folks have whatever hope they had before. I don't know if it's changed in terms of homelessness. I do think some people are pretty worried out there, though, that their loved ones or they themselves might be impacted by the coronavirus and may face death. But and I'll say it again: if you have hope in a Creator that loves you and has made a way for you to have eternal life, this is a significant bump in the road, but just that, a bump in the road. There's a whole lot more to be had of this life. Another question: what have the kids at the mission been doing because of coronavirus? The kids, I know, have been, what have they been doing? I see them out there playing a lot, riding their bikes around the parking lot. I know it's limited on where you can go. Parking, or a lot of playgrounds are closed in the community, so as not to spread any diseases. There are, I know the kids are washing their hands a lot, but it is certainly a challenge, and even more of a challenge when you can't see your friends like you used to. So I don't know if they're doing the Zoom meetings or the FaceTime like this, but I suspect they would. I know we had some laptops donated recently that can be used for that. Great question. We have another question here coming up. How many staff are working during this time? So yeah, we are continuing to operate at our same levels, if not more. So one thing I forgot to mention, part of the move to the high school created more space. That gym and the cafeteria is very large, and we were able to accommodate more people with the social distancing. And so we're averaging probably another 15 to 20 people on a daily basis that we can serve than we could at the old location, just due to capacity constraints. And so part of the agreement that we had in place with Whatcom Unified Command and the school district was to have additional staff on hand. And so we hired on temporary support staff. So we have normally for the 280 people across all our programs that we're serving on a 24-hour basis, we usually have around 46 or so staff, and I'd say probably 10 of those are part-time, working on all these various programs, offering the specialized care that's so needed. I believe we hired 17 support staff, temporary support staff, and their terms will be concluded when Whatcom Unified Command says, okay, high school use is done, we're moving on to something else. So we're incredibly thankful, though, for that team that stepped up. I do know there's, we got 30 million Americans unemployed now across the country, and Bellingham wasn't spared from that either. And so we've had a lot of folks willing to step up and get paid to do that. I do believe we have one job open right now. It's one of the tougher jobs to fill just because the timing of it can be challenging for people's personal lives, but it's the weekend graveyard shift. So if you have interest in coming on permanently at the mission in a part-time capacity, we do need someone for that. Just hop on our website, click on the employment tab, and you'll get to the application there.
Just a few minutes left.
Okay, we got a few minutes left. Next question: how can I pray for the mission? If you've been listening to this whole FaceTime thing, you've heard me say it already, but be praying for our staff. I really, one of the things you worry about for your team is burnout. Pray for refreshment for the staff. Pray for that the resources continue to come in, that we're able to continue providing this service that's so important in our community. Pray for our guests that for some that maybe they need a little prodding. We like to call it, from our staff perspective, being a warm demander. Pray for our guests, the coronavirus and the challenges that are facing our community now, that those things soften the hearts of people, that they might be able to consider afresh what the future can look like. Be praying for that, if you would. Be praying, for the team. Be praying for all the folks too at home. That we have a sea of just phenomenal volunteers that really dedicate themselves to this place, and many of them can't come in right now. We had to shut that down for temporarily, just for the safety of everybody involved. And I know that's a huge heartache for a lot of our volunteers, because they love the people we serve so deeply and so well. And so pray for those hearts, and pray for a remedy to this. The getting a what do you call it? We need to get a vaccine, and get a vaccine quickly. The sooner we can get a vaccine, the more we feel like we can get back to business as usual. Without a vaccine, this social distancing thing is going to go on for a while, and it is a huge challenge. For many of our guests, one of the greatest challenges they carry is a relational challenge, a relational brokenness, and they need that help relationally. When you can't be present with somebody as close as they need, you can't have human touch, all these things, that makes it worse. And so be praying for our guests that they're able to find new ways to connect. That would be a huge blessing for our people, because you need to have the human connection if you're going to want to get better, if you want to feel safe enough to actually share your deeper wounds and get the healing that you need. Great question. I think we might have time for one more. Looks like it's just coming in now. I want to thank Jessica for working hard to set this up and getting the questions moderated. And it's interesting. These things aren't that easy to pull off. We had it all set up in my office, even had light and stuff, but this is working out just fine. Last question. This is also from an 8-year-old. What do you do if people start crying because of COVID? Oh man, that's an honest question, and I appreciate it. And I have seen some of those tears, and it's usually the outcomes of a lot of things that COVID-19 is exacerbating. And what do you do when someone is crying? You try and make yourself as present as possible, while staying safe and keeping the other person safe. And maybe you bring them a cup of water, and just remind them that they're not alone, and that they are loved, and that they're wanted. That's one of the heartaches a lot of people experience, when you're getting kicked out of cafes and kicked off the bus, or people are moving away from you because you maybe haven't had a shower. It is You want to feel like you are wanted and that you have something to offer. And so the more that you can present that sense of respectful presence, um, that will be a blessing to somebody who is crying because of COVID-19. Great question. Thanks for asking. I got time for 2 more questions. Get them in if you can.
They're already in.
Oh, they're already in, I'm told. All right.
Um,
Question is, where do guests get the things they need when they move out? Well, right now that's kind of a challenge. We have had a number of folks move out and get their own places, which is always usually always a success for folks. But where do they get their things? Actually, I don't know if I'm pretty sure like Goodwill and places like that are closed. I actually don't know. I haven't looked it up, but I'm assuming they are, and so it's hard to go buy your chairs and table and at cheap prices. We Right now we just put word out, typically amongst those we know, and we might pull up some things that someone might need if they need a bed or something like that. But right now, people are kind of stuck with getting the things that they need, just because our whole community is pretty closed down for that.
But the staff work with them.
Yeah, but Jessica's just reminding the staff do work very closely with people to try and get them the things they need, and in light of COVID-19, though, like I said, a lot of that isn't available. But yeah, once things settle down and COVID-19 lessens and the restrictions are lessened as well, we'll be picking that back up again quickly. All right, here's another question. Oh, great question. Share a way that would you share a way that God has been there for you? You know, one of the things you worry about when you're in a position of leadership and you're overseeing a pretty good size operation that is meeting a very essential critical need in our community. You worry, hey, you know what? As the economy is really suffering right now, all the unemployment going on, are we going to be able to continue paying our staff to continue offering this incredible work that's going on here? I mean, that's 280 people, like I said before, coming through our doors in various different types of programs that are scaffolding them into a place of life transformation and life flourishing. And is the community going to continue to support this? Because they've got needs too. They're suffering as well. Uh, and are the donations going to keep coming in to be able to do this? And I remember, honestly being worried about that and being forced to my own knees and praying, because when this first happened, we saw our donations dropped off considerably. And we're like, oh no, what's going to happen? And we've got some reserves, and we can weather this for a time, but we'll be able to weather it for the long haul. And I am so pleased to say that the community is stepping up. We're continuing to be able to offer the services that we are. The people on the streets are continuing to engage the friendship of the mission and continuing to get the hope that they need to be able to dream about the future, what's possible. This isn't the end. And that's one area where the Lord has just shown up, saying, you know what? This is my mission, Hans, not yours. This is my mission, and I'm going to continue to allow this thing to flourish. The people I love are going to have life and life to the full. Thank you. I get to wrap this up. I want to thank all of you that participated, that came on and listened to what we're doing. I suspect this is probably recorded, so I'm hoping we can play this again later if you missed it or came partway through. God bless you. Thank you for your support of this place, being champions and linking arms with us as we fight the coronavirus, as we keep people out of the ER and bring people to a place of life flourishing. Thank you. God bless you.